Greetings, friends. Bags under the eyes are the topic of our meeting today. It's a relevant topic for many people. Let's start with the obvious. Bags under the eyes are not a diagnosis, but rather a specific change in a person's appearance when swelling or puffiness appears under the eyes. In fact, the presence of swelling or puffiness is the main symptom. Other signs of what we call bags under the eyes can include sagging or loose skin, as well as dark circles under the eyes. The formation of bags under the eyes can result from various physiological mechanisms. In other words, there isn't a single cause that leads to the appearance of these bags. But I have identified 4 main physiological mechanisms behind them. Here is the first mechanism develops when the tissues that support the eyelids, such as the muscles and ligaments, become weakened. There can be various reasons for this, but we'll talk about the causes later. Now, the second mechanism is that fluid can accumulate in the area under the eyes. Obviously, an excessive amount of this fluid is visible to the naked eye. This is the puffiness under the eyes. The third mechanism is thinning of the skin and the appearance of wrinkles. And one more mechanism. The fatty tissue, which is usually evenly distributed around the eyes, can shift and move into the area under the eyes. Now, as promised, let's talk about the main causes. Genetics. Yes, there are people for whom these very bags under the eyes are simply an anatomical feature. Next, a very relevant cause for everyone is aging. As we age, the skin becomes thinner and wrinkles appear, making the bags under the eyes more noticeable. Age-related changes in the skin, subcutaneous tissue, and muscles also lead to changes in the way fat tissue is held in place, causing it to shift into the area under the eyes. Fluid retention in the body is a very common cause related to eating salty foods, or simply drinking a lot of fluids, or drinking alcohol, or after waking up. Basically, anytime you haven't urinated for a long period. Other causes include lack of sleep, crying, allergies, or any conditions that make a person rub their eyes, or something got into your eye. By the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be a foreign object, like sand or a fly getting in. It could be something simple, like washing your face and getting soap in your eyes, or your eyes coming into contact with smoke. Speaking of smoke, another cause of puffiness is smoking. And of course, illnesses are also a cause of bags under the eyes. As a rule, we're talking about kidney diseases, thyroid disorders, as well as some connective tissue diseases, and certain types of dermatitis. So now the main thing you probably want to hear from me is how to get rid of these bags. We understand that under eye bags in and of themselves are generally harmless and don't require any urgent medical intervention. Under eye bags are an obvious and annoyingly very visible cosmetic flaw. People don't like this cosmetic flaw and they want to get rid of it. So the first piece of advice, since the causes of under eye bags vary, the ways to help and the treatment methods also differ. Although there are some universal ways to help. At the same time, it would be really great if, before you start trying to fix the problem, you sat down, thought about it, and figured out the main reason why this is happening to you. Age, crying, allergies, overeating, drinking, lack of sleep, and so on. And then the cause will become clear. Of course, the help you provide will be more targeted and more effective. Here's an obvious example, an allergy, right? You can apply whatever you want to your eyes and do all sorts of massages as much as you like. But when the cause is clear, simply taking an over-the-counter antihistamine and stopping contact with the source of the allergy will very quickly get rid of those bags. So, in fact, by talking about an antihistamine, we've actually started discussing treatment methods, ways to help. So the first thing is medication. And while antihistamines are actually the only drugs you can use on your own for bags under the eyes, everything else requires a specific diagnosis and serious prescription medications. Diuretics, for example, for kidney diseases, or anti-inflammatory hormones for connective tissue diseases, and so on. The next area of help is cosmetology. This includes both topical cosmetic products and various procedures. There is a huge, truly enormous number of products specifically designed to be applied under the eyes. They are available for both men and women. They nourish the skin, moisturize it, and so on. In addition, there are filler injection procedures that fill in wrinkles. There are also laser resurfacing, chemical peels, and so on. And finally, the third, perhaps the most radical, but also a very common option for help, is surgical intervention. We're talking about a procedure known as blepharoplasty. Blepharoplasty is a surgical operation. All you need to undergo it is the desire, the money, and the understanding that in the current situation, non-surgical methods are useless. And the cherry on top, for blepharoplasty, you need a surgeon with golden hands to perform the Hympadint procedure. The essence of blepharoplasty is that during the operation, tiny micro-incisions are made in the folds of the eyelids, and excess fat and sagging skin are removed. So, to repeat, the three types of assistance we've mentioned, medications, cosmetology, and surgery, generally require the help of specialists. Nevertheless, there are, after all, some simpler ways to help. Methods that can be called home remedies, peaceful solutions. So now, here are a few simple tips on how you can reduce or eliminate under-eye bags using simple, inexpensive, and accessible means or actions. First, cold. Just as applying ice to an injured leg reduces swelling, a cool compress on the eye area similarly reduces puffiness under the eyes. What could this be? What cold item can you apply? It could be, for example, a cooling pack. Using cold cucumbers is also popular. You slice the cucumbers into rings, take them out of the fridge, and place them on your eyes. There are also special gel eye masks that are kept in the refrigerator. You can use cold tea bags as well. There is also a special cooling product for the eyes with a metal roller applicator. All of these are used for a relatively short period of time, at most 5 to 15 minutes. And in any case, applying cold should be combined with gentle pressure. The next tip is to reduce your fluid intake, especially before bedtime. This tip is especially effective when you combine it with the third tip, limiting your salt intake. Fourth, the fourth one. Well, it might sound obvious, but let's just quit smoking. Quitting smoking is in general an effective way to look better. But you should know that smokers are more prone to developing wrinkles, and tobacco smoke itself has a negative effect on the skin. The fifth tip is to limit your alcohol consumption. No, it's not excess alcohol that accumulates under your eyes. Alcohol generally leads to dehydration, but this hardly affects the area under the eyes, which is why under-eye bags become more noticeable. In addition, alcohol disrupts sleep, and this alone, sleep disruption, is another reason that contributes to the appearance of bags under the eyes. In fact, the preventive measures here are obvious. Drink in moderation or not at all, and if you do drink, have at least a glass of a non-alcoholic beverage, like water, for every serving of alcohol. Sixth tip. Since we've mentioned sleep, an important tip is to get enough rest. Ideally, you should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day. Continuing on the topic of sleep, avoid sleeping on your stomach. When you sleep on your stomach, more fluid flows to your face, which leads to the formation of bags under your eyes. And if you already have bags, then small pouches turn into large bags. Eighth tip, sleep with your head elevated. In general, an extra pillow or raising the head of the bed is a good way to prevent and combat bags under the eyes. Ninth tip, avoid sources of allergies. Keep over-the-counter remedies on hand if you have seasonal allergies. Here's a video about seasonal allergies. Prepare for this in advance. Next, nasal congestion. It doesn't matter what the cause is, whether it's allergic or infectious, but nasal congestion makes bags under the eyes worse. Rinsing out mucus with special devices and reducing swelling in the nasal passages are effective ways to help. We talked about these devices and saline solutions in this video. Next, moisturize the skin around your eyes. In general, moisturize your skin, but the skin around the eyes is thinner, so a lack of moisture makes both wrinkles and bags under the eyes very, very noticeable. It's best to use special products specifically designed for the area around the eyes. Ideally, do this regularly before going to bed. But don't forget about air quality, especially the air quality in your bedroom, and that normal humidity is between 40 and 60%, that a humidifier can help you, and so on. The 12th tip, honestly, I'm not too eager to give it, but I will anyway, since everyone talks about it, and I have to mention it too. So I'm counting on your common sense here. 2, reduce the appearance of under-eye bags, over-the-counter, creams intended. For treating, hemorrhoids are often recommended. Ta-da-da-dum. Yes, but the essential component of such creams is a substance, yes, called phenylephrine. Phenylephrine is a vasoconstrictor. It's available as nasal drops and is used to treat a runny nose even in children, including newborns. But phenylephrine can cause blood vessel spasms anywhere in the body. In general, the main thing is, if you've decided to use hemorrhoid cream under your eyes, first of all, it should be the cream, not the ointment, not the suppository that you melt in your hands. It must be the cream. Secondly, this cream must contain phenylephrine, and you've made sure of that. And thirdly, you use all your common sense to make sure that the cream intended for your butt doesn't get into your eyes. 13th tip, be careful with caffeine. We discussed the topic of excessive caffeine intake in detail in this video. Too much caffeine can lead to fluid deficiency. Here the effect is somewhat similar to that of alcohol. And the last tip is, once again, about caffeine. Caffeine taken internally and caffeine applied topically affect under-eye bags differently. When applied topically, caffeine constricts blood vessels and, accordingly, reduces under-eye bags. By the way, it's this effect, not just the cold, that explains why chilled black tea bags placed under the eyes work. So both the cold and the caffeine are effective there. Nevertheless, some cosmetic companies produce eye creams with caffeine. Of course, this doesn't always help everyone, but it's definitely worth a try. So now you know plenty of ways to prevent under-eye bags, as well as methods to get rid of them. So make the right conclusions.